adopted pup, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Lloyd Wright, Sinatra, Zappa, Seltzer, and his friend and favorite Franklin dog adopter, Michael Seltzer. I'm Don Was, Oak Park's 116th most regarded music producer, and now, here's Franklin.
And wow, thank you so much to that great band of mine. God, they're so good. And to my announcer and all of you folks in the audience, thank you for being here. Another milestone, spectacularly entertaining Franklin show with great guests and lots of fun. And it's all coming up right after these words. Stay tuned.
Love is a lesson that doesn't end. It knows no conditions, so you better buckle in. Love keeps you on your toes. It never stops, only grows. Love isn't easy, it's a commitment, especially when they're being their most resistant. Love is finding the right seat so you can take a breath. But remember, love isn't lax, it always double checks. Check that your kids are in the right seat at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. I am so pleased to be here with Franklin is right here on my lap. He's recovered so great from his surgery. He's very happy to be back on the show. And this is a very special Canadian version of the Franklin show. Now, people know that we Detroit folk share a border with Windsor, Canada. And I had, and you'll see him later in the show, a great photographer, author, entrepreneur, Chris Edwards, who has written yet another book. It's called The River That Runs Between Us. And it's all about the relationship between Canada and the United States. So that's coming up in the next segment. But right now, I have a gentleman who I have such great respect and admiration for. He is a Grammy award-winning, amazing musicologist. I guess that's the word, yeah?
That's the word, absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to have Rob Bowman, Grammy award-winning Rob Bowman, join me on the Franklin Show today. Welcome, my friend. Good to see you.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Michael. Always good to see you.
So let's deep dive into the background of you, sir, because you have an illustrious history in music. And let's start at the beginning. Where did it all begin for you? And then we'll talk about the current new project.
Well, it begins when I'm 7. Beatles, about 4 months before Ed Sullivan. And it just, they broke first in Canada. You probably know that. It's for the States. Hearing the Beatles just changed everything. It's like the world went from gray to suddenly astonishing bright. There was a reason to get up every morning because there were Beatle records. I could go on about this, but it basically set the trajectory.
And you were 7, 1963, when they hit the New York, the Ed Sullivan Show. I was 8, so we're in the same time span.
Right.
I'll never forget it. And those years, the Beatles years were amazing, though. Think about the change in our country in the 60s, where you and I grew up. That was the most tumultuous decade. And what I use as a barometer when I talk about that is the Beatles landing in 63 with their little mop top haircuts that were so revolutionary. And within 5-6 years, their hair is down to the middle of their back. They're doing LSD. They're tripping, and the entirety of the rock music had changed so dramatically, right?
And they go from "Love Me Do" to "Strawberry, Fields." The progression musically, it's just beyond belief. Changes everything.
Right.
So Beatles when I'm 7, Stones when I'm 8, Dylan when I'm 9, Otis Redding when I'm 10, and it just kept going. Until I was 15, I was writing for magazines about music, had lied about my age, was interviewing a lot of my heroes. My first cover story with Pink Floyd on the Dark Side of the Moon tour. And you want cultural capital? Mm-hmm. Don't go to school for a day and go interview Pink Floyd. Kids ask you the next day, what were you doing yesterday? And you tell them that, and then see this cover story. But it just went from there. Yeah, and I played in bands. I wrote music for films. I did a BA, MA, and then PhD in ethnomusicology. I knew one way or another music was going to be my whole life. And it worked. I became a professor. I pioneered the study of popular music in Canada, first person, and was one of the first 4 in North America. There's a few Americans were doing it just a year or two ahead of me. Still writing for magazines, writing books. My Stax books in the Blues Hall of Fame. Won 2 of the 3 American Music Book Awards when it came out. Led to the building of the Stax Museum of American Soul Music. Led to the 4-hour documentary on HBO right now. Now it sounds like I'm bragging, but you wanted to know my background. I write part of the Rock and Roll Fame induction ceremony every year. The Stones have hired me. Bob Dylan's hired me. Spent 3 days with Bob Marley. And life has been fantastic.
Well, you're breezing through some very notable achievements. I mean, come on. So let's talk about Stax for a little bit. That's a legendary part of your life and music. I mean, what drove you to that?
When I wanted to do a PhD, I wanted to live in the South because I wanted to live within the culture that had produced the music or was behind a lot of the music that I cared the most about. And it turned out to be an amazing move. I mean, I'll leave it at that. I mean, Memphis, I could do things that were like the world hadn't changed in 40 years. I'd go to juke joints. I'd go to fife and drum picnics to go back to the Civil War and, around Senatobia. It was just unbelievable. But when I went there, I was going to do a dissertation, of course, to do my PhD. It could have been rockabilly. It could have been the gospel quartets of the 40s out of Memphis. It could have been the jug bands from the 20s. My interests are wide, wide open. But Stax was one of the things. Otis Redding had changed my life when I first heard him, turned on to him by the Stones. And with first day I moved to Memphis, unload my U-Haul van, go out to a pizza place with my friend. This woman, maybe 25, 26, says to me, "Y'all aren't from around here, are you?" Well, that's clear. And I said, "No, why are you here? I'm doing my PhD." "Oh, what are you going to do it on?" And I listed a few things and said, "Maybe Stax Records." And she had no clue what it was. This is 8 years after Stax had gone bankrupt. It had been in her city while she was alive. This place was so important in terms of American music and integration. The fact she had no clue made me think, this needs to be done. So I decided I'm in the right place at the right time. And I decided this is what I was going to do. Spent the next 3 years crisscrossing the country, interviewing everybody from every session musician, songwriter, engineer, the various owners of the company, secretaries, promo man. I got every story from every direction. Eventually got access to the Stax vaults, heard literally every unreleased piece of music that exists.
Wow.
Went through all our files. I spent 12 years in total, not doing the PhD. I did that to finish the book, which is based on work I did for a PhD, but a very different work. I spent 12 years going through boxes and boxes and boxes of court records, which is mind-numbing, but then you hit gems. It's open part of the story that you didn't have. It was quite a journey. And the book has had an incredible impact. Stones hired me because Keith Richards was reading my book and loved it. And they wanted somebody to interview them who could talk about music, not just sex and drugs. So I took them on the road to California and then Australia to interview them for 3 weeks. And it ended up coming out in a book called According to the Stones. Its byline is Jagger, Richards, Watts, Wood, because it's all their conversations, but it's my interviews that got those conversations out of them. So, we'll have 3 paragraphs, Keith talking about Jumpin' Jack Flash, and then Mick for a paragraph, Charlie for 2, then back to Keith. So it's set up that way. I'm not the author, but I did all the interviews for it. They got all the material out of them. It was an amazing experience. When I think of myself as a little kid screaming at the foot of the stage, and then I'm sitting on his couch with Keith Richards for hours when he's got his guitar and showing me things that led to him writing, some part of some track. It was a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah, no doubt. And then from that an HBO special documentary. I mean, all of this is so impressive and has covered so much.
I've actually been involved in 3 films at Stax. First one was in '94, a French film called The Soul of Stax. Then there was an American film later on called Respect Yourself. I was just a consultant on that. And then, but this is the last word. It's 4 hours. Obviously, through HBO, it's got incredible exposure. Won a Peabody Award this year.
Wow.
And another film I did on a transgendered soul singer named Jackie Shane, based on my work again, and that I'm interviewed in it. They used my interviews with Jackie. It won a Peabody the same day. And it's not out in the States yet. It's playing in Europe and Canada, but we don't have a streaming service in the States. But 2 Peabodys in 1 year for 2 different films. It was a good year.
That's a good year. I mean, I've got this one award so far, Best New Talk Show of the Year.
I like it. Very
this
cool.
is the foundation of the Alliance for Community Media, so I'm very proud of that. But
So you should be.
but I'm no Rob Bowman. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about the latest project, which you're out touring and presenting today. I know we are a little premature because it's dropping next week. Yes?
November 25th. Yes. Next week.
All right. So by the time this airs, it'll be just in advance of the drop. And then in reruns, folks will know it's out there. So let's talk about your latest book.
And of course, you can pre-order on Amazon. So if anybody gets inspired, you don't have to wait.
And they will.
The book's called Land of 1,000 Sessions, The Muscle Shoals Story, 1951 to 85, or The Complete Muscle Shoals Story, 1951 to 85. It is a long and deep work, 750 pages. I spent 6 years working on it. Muscle Shoals Story is very complex. I actually wanted to do it in 2 volumes, but the publisher really wanted it all together. So, but it's very complex. There's 10 studios, 2 major ones, Fame, and then Muscle Shoals Sound. And between those studios, we have Aretha Franklin's first soul records. We have Wilson Pickett's Land of 1,000 Dances, Mustang Sally, Hey Jude, and so on. We have Candy Staton, Etta James, Irma Thomas, the staple singers. I'll take you there. Respect Yourself, Bobby Womack. So it's an incredible site for soul music. But unbelievably, we also have all Bob Seger's hits. Paul Simon's Kodachrome, Still Crazy After All These Years. Leon Russell, Tightrope. Joe Cocker, High Time We Went. Cat Stevens, all these recorded between these 2 studios. And Traffic, the Rolling Stones cut Brown Sugar. Wild Horses and You Gotta Move in Muscle Shoals Sound. The story is hard to believe because Muscle Shoals itself is a small hamlet in northwest Alabama. It's attached to 3 sister cities, Tuscumbia, Sheffield, and Florence. But they're all small. They're called the Quad Cities. And people use Muscle Shoals as a short form for the 4 of them. Because students were in Florence, they were in Sheffield, and they were actually in Muscle Shoals. But this is a place where nothing like this should have ever happened. It should have been impossible. But one guy, a guy named Rick Hall, 1959-60, couldn't get into Nashville. Doors were closed. Nashville was a very closed shop back then. And he's the kind of guy who couldn't understand the word no. And decided, all right, forget them. I'm going to start this, barbed wire and hay kind of studio in a candy and tobacco factory that he leased the first floor. The thing was a rat's nest, but he got a great hit out of there. Arthur Alexander's "You Better Move On," covered by the Rolling Stones a year later, or 2 years later, actually. And the Beatles covered Arthur's "Anna," which also Rick had worked on. And Bob Dylan later covered Arthur's "Sally Sue Brown," which was also cut in Muscle Shoals. Anyway, Rick uses that money, buys a lot, builds a proper studio, cuts hits by Tommy Rowe, the Tams, Jimmy Hughes, Joe Tex, and then things explode when Atlantic brings Wilson Pickett down and Chess brings Etta James down. And at one point, they literally were referred to Muscle Shoals as a hit capital of the world. Didn't mean they made more hits than New York, but the percentage of hits given the number of sessions, and there were hundreds of sessions, the percentage of hits were better in Muscle Shoals than anywhere else in the country, including Motown, New York, LA. It's unbelievable. 10 studios come out of this, beginning by a stubborn, ornery individual who pushed and pushed and pushed. And not only great R&B, I mentioned all the great rock, there's also weird pop records. The Osmonds, all their hits, their first hits were cut there.
Really?
Paul Anka's You Have My Baby, which personally is one of the worst records ever, but it sold millions. People obviously loved it. And it was Paul's first hit since 59. That's kind of Muscle Shoals with an R&B band behind him. It's crazy. And then in the 80s, when funk and disco took over the R&B world, and the record industry went into a terrible recession in 81 and 82, to survive, Muscle Shoals pivoted to be a country town. The Gatlin Brothers, T.G. Shepherd, Jimmy Reed, Mac Davis, Shenandoah. Rick Hall became one of the most in-demand country producers. There's nobody in American music history who's been way at the top of R&B producers, left it behind, become massive pop producer, left it behind, and then become one of the most in-demand country producers in one career and one studio. It's pretty insane.
That is crazy, man. And you spent 6 years chronicling this adventure.
Yeah, I thought about it for years. It's a logical follow-up to Stax, because Stax farmed out a lot of material to Muscle Shoals. So I already knew all the guys there, had interviewed them about Stax. But the story is so big, 10 studios, that I decided, no, I'm not going to tackle this. This is just too much. Maybe somebody else will do it. Somebody should. Right. And there were 3 books of Muscle Shoals, but they're slim volumes full of errors. And they upset a lot of the people within the music community there. And I got a call in 2019 saying, would you do this? We'll commission you to do it.
Oh.
I was a little hesitant, and then thought, I had a window between big projects and didn't realize how long it would take me. And that would be 750 pages. But I thought, you know what? Somebody should do it. People are dying who are part of this. They need to be interviewed before it's too late.
Right.
So I took it on as a labor of love. And here we are.
And you went through COVID during this period. How did that affect the project?
Well, it didn't in a large way, because I went down to Muscle Shoals in 2019 when I started. Did a bunch of interviews. 2 of the people I interviewed on that first trip died within a few weeks. So it's good I started it. But when COVID hit in 2020, I could do phone interviews.
Yeah.
You got to think, nobody's out on tour.
Right.
Nobody's.
Oh, that's true.
Everybody's home. So I won't say that COVID helped me, but it probably made some interviews quicker to obtain than having to wait till somebody's off the road or this or that. Everybody's at home. So, I set up a ton of phone interviews, and that's how a lot of the work was done. I went back to Muscle Shoals and spent days doing more interviews after COVID.
Yeah.
But a lot of the interviews were done on the phone during COVID.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a treasure, and I'm looking forward to doing a deep dive in it. 750 pages reminds me of our good friend Howard DeWitt, Professor Howard DeWitt, who writes voluminous volumes on our hero Van Morrison.
He does.
I tell him, can't you edit these down into something more digestible than 700, 800 page books? They're this thick. But you've done that in this case.
I always feel that the story dictates the length.
Yeah.
Working on another book right now that will be, a quarter of the size of this at most. It's a great topic and it needs to be done, but it's not as complex, not as involved. But when I do something, corny as it might sound, take it to the wall and back.
Yeah.
My attitude is, I'm going to do it. This should be the work forever. Otherwise, why bother?
The definitive classic version that tells the entire story. I agree.
Nobody else could ever do this again.
And how would you break that into 2 volumes? It's like a TV miniseries. I don't know that you'd have the ability to do that. So you had to do it the way They ended up doing it. So it's available now on Amazon. People can go online and grab it up. Next week, it'll be available all over and readily available. And you're out touring the country and speaking about it, which is great. You and I also share a love for our hero who just turned 80, and we were together for his 80th birthday in Belfast, Northern Ireland, Sir Van Morrison. And you and I have had some memorable experiences together following that guy all over the world. He's coming back to the U.S. this February. He's going to be doing a West Coast hop, as he does every year. And I hope to see you and many others in San Francisco and elsewhere. But that's always been a pleasure too. How about that 80th? That was something else.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we got 5 shows,
Ronnie Wood,
including the birthday night, with a lot of great guests like Ron Wood, Chris Farlow, and so on.
Yeah.
But you know what? The 70th was even better.
Oh no, I know.
Oh yeah. I mean,
there was nothing.
Great, but the 70th was like transcendent to another planet, outdoors on Cypress Avenue. But having seen Van, God knows how many times since '74, there are so many times where it's been transcendent, and that makes it worth it to go again and again and again. You're always going to get great music, but when it's transcendent, it's an experience you'll never get from anyone else in the same way.
And that's why we've been doing this for decades, you and I. I started in 1972 with my then girlfriend, now wife, at the Fox Theater in Detroit, and we just never stopped, and we've seen a couple hundred concerts plus. But I'll tell you, my favorite ones are going back to Belfast, where he lives. I just love being there, walking those grounds. It's amazing.
Belfast is great, and of course it is hometown for Van. So the experience is incredible. I'm jealous that you saw him in '72. You beat me by 2 years.
Wow. Yeah. You were just a little bit younger than I.
Yeah.
But so where were you back in '72? Were you in
I was in Toronto.
Yeah.
And I'd started seeing tons of shows beginning in 1970. I mean, but Van did not play Toronto on the '72 tour. Otherwise, it would have been there.
Yeah, of course you would have.
I mean, I was too young to think about getting to Detroit to see him.
Right.
I wouldn't even have known pre-internet they played Detroit at that time.
Right. Well, Rob, it's a pleasure to have you on the Franklin Show. Telling this story, and this new book about Muscle Shoals is something that everybody who is interested in music should be interested in reading. And I urge my friends watching all over the world, and we're on the BBC in Ireland and in England, and we're all over the world with this crazy show. We have a lot of fans over there because of Van Morrison, and all over the US. I urge you to read Rob's new book and go to Amazon and grab it up. Rob, a pleasure to have you here, my friend. Good to see you. You're looking well. Good luck on this tour. Good luck on your next project. You want to tip us a little bit about the next project?
No, I think I'll keep that close.
Keep that under wraps. All right. Well, you'll come back and tell us about that in the future.
I'll have to talk to you about it when it's done.
All right. Look forward to it. All right. Thanks, my friend. Thanks for being here. And folks, stay tuned for more on the Franklin Show. We'll be
Thanks,
back.
Michael.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you just did that. Look at that. It's so sad.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Franklin Show. Franklin is right here by my side, but he's on medical leave, as you know, and doing well. But nonetheless, he needs to be down here and not in my arms. So in the meantime, I want to introduce to you a man who I have come to know. He is an author, a publisher, a photographer, and his name is Chris Edwards, which is just a great radio name. You realize there are Chris Edwards all over the country that are on radio stations, but you aren't one of them, right?
Big Jim Edwards. Remember?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's not me.
I know that. And, because we met in a media business, I really didn't remember exactly who you were until we were reunited recently with a recent new book that you published. And so your company, Walkerville Publishing, right?
Correct.
Publishing of fabulous, beautiful books. And the first one that I came across was 5,000 Ways You Know You're from Detroit. And we met at the Robin Seymour last radio reunion in 2019. And you showed up because you had wanted to bring your books and sell them. And they're beautiful books, coffee table books. And since that time, you and I have stayed in touch, and now you have a new one. So let's just talk about you and your background. You are a marketing guy, an ad guy, a publishing guy. Tell us.
Well, where to begin, as they say, begin at the beginning. Now we
That's how it usually works. Yeah.
we got into digital publishing, right when the Apple came out, Apple Mac in '85. So we embraced that whole thing, and we got into book publishing about 20 years ago. And we did several books, local history books related to Windsor, Detroit. The two big books we did, the first one was called 500 Ways You Know You're from Windsor. That was extremely popular. So we thought, why not do one? Because Detroit's 10 times bigger. Let's do one, 5,000 Ways You Know You're from Detroit. And that was a massive book. I think you have a copy.
I do. I love it.
Yeah, we undertook it. And what we tried to do was tell the story of what it was like as a baby boomer growing up in Detroit and Windsor and now the border cities. So out of those two books, we decided to do a book that would actually explore the complete history of how Windsor and Detroit are connected to one another through culture, sport, families, the river being the connecting entity to it. So this was a 7-year project. We embarked on it. We stopped. We started. One of those things that we didn't know if we were ever going to get it done. And finally, we just released it last month. So we're really thrilled about this great book that explores the relationship between Detroit and Windsor and how connected we are to each other. I think we in Windsor feel it more perhaps than you do in Detroit. We're like the little suburb that people love to come and visit.
Yeah, and it's such it is a relationship between the two cities. We have many of our Canadian friends here who are big hockey fans, obviously, and they come across all the time to see the Red Wings play. And so we have had that. And growing up as a kid, when I was a kid, we would go across the river because you could get beer for 25 cents and you could be 16 years old and they would still sell it to you.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's talk about hockey for a minute.
Yeah. All right. For 1 minute.
It's the national sport in Canada, right?
Oh, no.
So the way Detroiters got wired on hockey was through the Red Wings and the Olympia. But most people don't know that the first year, now it's a 100-year anniversary of the Detroit Red Wings, but they were called the Detroit Cougars, and they played their first year in Windsor at the Windsor Arena. So that's a kind of an interesting part of history. But the really cool part is now Detroit's called itself Hockey Town. And the reason why Detroiters got so wired on hockey is they used to watch Hockey Night in Canada.
Correct.
From Channel 9.
Yeah.
And that would be broadcast over the air to Detroiters would pick it up, and they got completely addicted to watching Saturday night hockey. And it was a big deal. So you had this situation one time where the tower went out, the big tower, the CKLW tower, and it couldn't broadcast on a Saturday night. And more Detroiters complained about not being able to get their Saturday night hockey than anybody else. So that's when they realized, wow, there's a lot of Detroit people watching this channel. So it's really interesting how that, we were able to share our love of the sport with Detroiters, and Detroiters are very passionate about their hockey. So I love that connection.
Well, and it goes without saying, and that's where the moniker Hockey Town came from, and it's been a celebrated institution. And I sure remember Hockey Night in Canada. I remember Channel 9. I mean, Bozo was on Channel 9. Marty Adler was was he the broadcaster? I know he was the booth announcer.
Marty was a booth announcer. Marty just passed, by the way, and I don't know if you know, he founded a radio station in Amherstburg that's broadcasting now.
Is that right?
Kind of cool, yeah. And Marty was a buddy of mine. I was interviewed by them last week. Marty decided to start a radio station that broadcasts over the air, if you can imagine. So
no, I didn't know, and I'd lost track of that guy. I sure remember him from the past. And Don Daly was another CKLW television broadcaster.
For the sports guy, Don Daly.
See, I know my broadcast history.
Boy.
I don't know much about sports, but I know my broadcast history.
Yeah, your broadcast. And we get into that in the book. One of the big chapters is on, one of the things that happened was Americans really good at doing culture, music, movies, books, TV. Now it's all on stream. The Americans are the best at it. There's no question about it. And what we decided to do was, because we didn't want to be completely dominated by the Americans, so we started this little station called CKLW. The Big Eight. And they took that top 40 format, that 2020 format.
Oh, yeah.
And became the number 4 radio station in North America. It's hard to imagine, coming out of a little Windsor, that this station would become the biggest thing since sliced bread.
Well, I've done a tribute to CKLW. If you haven't seen it, you should.
I will.
And I had Big Jim Edwards and Randall Carlisle and Joe Donovan and a whole cast of characters, and we did the 2020 news, Byron McGregor, and obviously CKLW was a massive influence on radio all across America, North America, and storied, legendary broadcasters came from that powerhouse. 50,000 watts.
50,000 watts of power. And it's interesting that somebody was smart enough in Windsor to realize that with this broadcast license that they had, that there was this huge market. And what's really cool about it is the relationship with Motown. A lot of those Motown acts could not get on TV. They just, there was still that stigma, we're not going to let these black musicians on TV.
And that's where Robin Seymour came in.
That's where Robin Seymour came in. And he said, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
And they just couldn't wait to come on his show. And, Mike, I don't have to tell you the lineup of musicians that were on Swingin' Time.
Every one of them.
Every one of them. And what was cool for us in Windsor is then those musicians would play over here.
Yeah.
So they'd play at high schools. They'd play at clubs. So, you got to see everybody. And not just Motown. If we look at Iggy Pop and Bob Seger and Mitch Ryder and Ted Nugent, they all played at our high schools over here because, we had that CKLW thing going on and they knew they'd get an audience.
And that's what makes your book so special, because they cover a lot of this nostalgia. 5,000 Ways was just a beautiful. I don't have it here in this home. I have it in my other. I'm sorry, but we will have it on the screen, and people can still acquire it, right?
It's out of print now.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, we sold it out, and we kind of overcooked it. It's 500 pages, and it cost too much to produce, and we couldn't get it cost too much to reproduce. So we had a big run, and we sold them out. And now the only way to find them is at John King or a place like that, a used bookstore. They're on eBay.
I'm sure they're on eBay too.
Yeah, but that was a big seller. But it was really expensive. We overdid it.
All right, well, let's talk about the new book, because that's really the most current publication that you guys produced. And it is available, right?
Yes, that's on walkerville.com, our website. We live in Walkerville. It's an inner suburb of Windsor.
Yep.
Actually founded by a Detroiter, Walkerville.
Is that right?
Hiram Walker, Canadian Club Whiskey.
Oh,
He came over here from Detroit because he was worried about prohibition in the 1850s, if you can imagine. They were worried that they were going to not be able to sell their liquor. So he came over here and he set up a distillery, which is still here. It's the oldest distillery in North America.
wow.
And it's still operating. And Walkerville's a very cool town. And what makes it even cooler is that, Albert Kahn, the famous Detroit architect, he started here in Walkerville. Hiram Walker hired him to build a bunch of buildings. So he's very well represented here. And it's a great little community. Invite Detroiters over. Come on over, man. It's got it going on. And the houses are very reminiscent of Indian Village because they were built by the same architects. They were going back and forth. So you'd feel right at home here.
Yeah, no, I mean, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
And so tell us more about the book and how many pages is this one?
Well, we stopped at 400. I mean, there is such a great relationship between Detroit and Windsor. We could have carried on, but my partner, my wife, was terrorizing me not to do another 500-page book because, first of all, they're heavy.
Yeah.
You got to haul these babies around. It's like I'm getting a little too old for this stuff. But the book was conceived out of an exhibit we had, a photo exhibit, and we had this venue, and we noticed that it was kind of like a shotgun. It was really long, but not very wide, an art gallery. So we said, hey, how about if we do one wall and it'll be Windsor stuff, and we'll do the other wall and it'll be Detroit stuff, and we'll have a symbolic river down the middle. So we got this blue carpet symbolizing the river, and we call it A River Runs Between Us. And it was very well received, but everybody who came to the exhibit kept asking us about the book.
Yeah.
We said, what book? They said, A River Runs Between Us. I said, oh, no, we didn't do a book. We're selling our other books. But it kind of set the seed in our brain. And then we went ahead and we started the book and put together the two pieces of the puzzle. My wife said, oh, let's just do what we have. And I said, oh, no, we're going to do a complete book. And then COVID hit, and then we couldn't cross the border for almost 2 years. See, I was doing a lot of work at the Detroit Historical Society, the Burton Collection, and I was talking to people and, gathering.
Yeah.
So I put it aside, but, that damn book kept haunting me. You wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, you have to finish this book. Maybe it was Sir Graves Ghastly. That's what it was. It was Sir Graves Ghastly in the middle of the night. So we went back at it and we finally finished it. And what it is, it tells the story of the river, the Detroit River, and what it, how symbolically it was when the French came. First you had the First Nations people, and then you had the French that came, and this was all French here until the British came. Then we had a lot of war. We had a lot of war of 1812, War of 1837. Then they carved it up. And, it's just a quirk of geography that Windsor is south of the border. I don't know if you're aware of that, but we are south of the border. It's the only place in North America you can get Mexican food and margaritas and not be in Mexico, south of the border. So there we are. And, it wasn't until 1965 that you really even needed you didn't need any papers for people in Windsor to go work in Detroit.
Right.
So for all that time before that, we were crossing back and forth like one big family. So people would come to this area to work in the automotive business. That happened right away. Henry Ford offered that $5 a day thing. And then Henry Ford said, wait a minute. The market that's really big right now is the British Empire, not United States. I can sell more cars to the British Empire. So he came over to Windsor and he opened a plant on the river, so that he could move cars to the British Empire without paying tariffs. Honest to God, he came here to avoid the tariffs. Wow. And Ford became this giant. But in Windsor, we were represented by all the automobile makers because they wanted that empire.
Yeah.
So Windsor became Motor City, just like Detroit. We're two motor cities. So we're twin cities, we're two motor cities. And that's just one of the stories of how Windsor and Detroit were connected. Great story, though, is Prohibition. During Prohibition, it was illegal to manufacture alcohol in the USA. So all the beer companies went under, all the whiskey makers bought, you name it, whatever. But in Canada, we were a little bit sly, and we said, you know what? You won't be allowed to make whiskey unless it's for export. So we set up an export trade here in Windsor where it was legal. So the boat would go out in the morning with a shipment to Jamaica, and it'd be back in the afternoon because it was going downriver to Wyandotte, the Purple Gang,
Right.
the River Gang.
Right.
And so that chapter is still always one of my favorite at this moment in our history when things were wild. I mean, you got Al Capone over here in Windsor. So these roadhouses were established along the river, and they were places where Americans would come over and party. Detroiters would come over and party. Ty Cobb, the Fords, they'd come over, and these were some elegant restaurants.
Yeah.
And they would come over here, and they could have their alcohol, but it was kind of illegal, but maybe not. It was hard to say, if they bribed the right guy. It's like Detroit. You couldn't get anything to drink unless you went 100 feet, during Prohibition. So we document that, and that's a lot of fun because this is really the wildest time ever. In the Purple Gang, what's it called, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in Chicago. Supposed to be the Purple Gang that was hired by Al Capone. So we have all these connections, and the Purple Gang was hanging over here. But then when I did a little more work, my buddy bought a brewery here, Walkerville Brewery, which has a long heritage, but it's in a new building. He said, I'm pretty sure that Herman Radner was in the Purple Gang. So I looked up Herman Radner, and he had come over. He owned the Savoy Hotel in Detroit, and that's where all the musicians and entertainers and actors, they all hung out at the Savoy Hotel.
Really?
He came over here, and he bought Walkerville Brewery during Prohibition, and he set up shop, and he was supposedly connected to the Purple Gang. So then I dug a little deeper and found that Herman Radner was the father of Gilda Radner, the famous actress.
Right.
So they had that Windsor connection, Walkerville connection to Prohibition. And that's a fascinating story as well of how, Herman Radner came to Windsor. And then, the thing about a book like this, Michael, is one thing leads to another. So then I started digging into this one brewery, Riverside Brewery, which was across from Pesh Island at the head of the Detroit River. And these guys came over, and these guys were badasses. They were the original Italian mafia. These guys are the original Sopranos. And they come over here, and they built a brewery right on the river so that they could ship beer to Belle Isle, where the trucks were waiting to get the beer to thirsty Detroiters. You can't make any of it up.
No, man. There's some great historical facts in this book, and it's a picture book. I mean, the photography is rich and tremendous.
Well, thank you. We did something pretty wild this time. We took these black and white photos and colorized them, but we didn't use AI. We did the old technique, like it's almost traditional. In the old days, they used to spray paint black and white photos. They had a technique where it would show through. And so we used like the spray paint tool in Photoshop. And I spent hours and hours and hours. So, timing's everything. The book comes out, and then Google announces this Nano Banana AI. And all you have to do now is tell it, take this black and white photo and turn it into color, and it does. And I looked at this technology, I just shook my head. I spent hundreds of hours. And so we took most of the black and white photos that are colorized for the first time. And that just gives them a whole new life.
But don't you feel a sense of accomplishment that you did that without AI? Everybody is doing AI and Chat GBT. It's very obvious for most people who recognize it. And obviously, it's a shortcut, and it's popular. But doing it the way you did it, there's a sense of accomplishment. And you and Elaine should be quite proud of your ability to do the kind of creative production that you've been able to do.
Well, thank you. I feel like we might be at the final moments of of doing everything that way.
It
I
may
mean,
be.
there'll always be a demand for quality. You can fake it a lot, but we really feel like, this is our 10th book. So we feel like we've kind of got it down now. And I've done a lot of books for other authors. They come to us and say, hey, can you help me with my project? So I've probably done another
Right.
100 books for other people. And so we've kind of learned our chops, but I really can see the writing on the wall on a lot of this stuff, like the research.
Hey, look, you and I came from an era where it was typesetting and keylining. And then suddenly in the 80s, when Apple computers came into play, and I owe a debt of gratitude to my beloved partner, may he rest in peace, Keith Kaufman, who brought us into that Apple generation, brought all this equipment into our offices. We didn't know what the hell this was all about. And I remember the first project that we did, we won a big account, Ace Hardware. And it was a presentation that we did in which we showed a picture of a young man and his son painting a picket fence using Ace paint. And we had superimposed the Ace can of paint in the photograph. Well, Ace was so impressed that we did this speculatively, and they thought we had set up a photo shoot. And it was us using this incredible new technology where we were able to take an Ace can of paint and put it into a stock photo of a guy and his little son painting a fence. So that's crazy, amazing technology that obviously now everybody understands. But back in the early 80s, that was like, what?
Wow, that's a great story. Ace is the place with the helpful handyman.
That was my client for decades, and it all started with that.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's really cool. You had the edge because the technology brought it. And I use it. I kind of use that analogy of when the Apple came out.
Yep.
I used to take a lot of grief over doing graphics with the Mac.
Right.
And
well, we were skipping ahead. We weren't doing it the old-fashioned way, typeset, keyline. I had all these typesetters and keyliners working for us, and it would take hours to put together these things that we could now do in minutes.
And how many typesetters and keyliners are left in the world?
Yeah, well, that's a whole other thing.
But you know what I mean? Like I feel like I feel like I've been there before with this AI coming in now. And
that's right. No, that is definitely something we all have to be concerned about.
I mean, we're at the other side of it now in terms of career, but
right.
I'm sure we're probably close to the same age, and we just can watch it now. We don't have to feel like, oh my God, I got to stay on top of it. So I'm just letting it all go by me.
Hey, listen, my hat is off to you and to your team and your wife for doing what you're doing. I exited the publishing business more than a decade ago, and I had a great career, and I loved every minute of it. But we could see it changing, and we could see it evolving, and there's something to be said for what you're doing right now. And I'm just pleased that I got to know you, and I'm pleased that you're able to continue to do what you do and use your skills and provide these great books. I'm going to encourage people to go to your website, which will be on the screen, and look for this brand new book, A River Runs Between Us. It's a great work of art and a coffee table book. Like all the books that you guys have done. You've done some really, really nice material. Well, I wish people could get 5,000 Ways.
Well, the good news is we're having an exhibit at the Art Gallery of Windsor. We're having a photo exhibit.
Oh, okay.
So we encourage our Detroit friends to come over, but they do have copies of the 5,000 Ways. I just found out good. The last stand of the 5,000 Ways books, and they have some. But you can come and look at the exhibit. It's a real cool exhibit. It's a cool gallery. It's right on the river. I mean, you get the killer view of Detroit, and
awesome.
Come over and enjoy some good old-fashioned Canadian beer.
How long is that going to be happening for, Chris?
Till May.
Till May. Okay.
Yeah, it's a nice exhibit. Really, really happy with it. So
all right, we'll get that up and make sure people know about that too. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time. I am very grateful to have you. I love talking to creative people about creative projects, and this is one of them.
Well, thanks, Michael. It's been my real pleasure. I hope I'll give you a buzz. We'll get together when you're back next year, I imagine.
I look forward to it. All right. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Hang on, everybody. We'll be right back with more. Stand by. Thank you.
Be right there. Wait. Use the shovel and bucket of water, remember? Drown, stir, drown, feel. Then make sure it's cool.
Where'd you learn that?
SmokeyBear.com. Brushed up on some tips before we left. Don't want to start a wildfire, right?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Well, folks, this was very special, and thank you so much for being here tonight. To all of you in this audience, to my great band, to my fabulous announcer, to great guests, I am so pleased to have presented this Franklin Show to you today. And next week, we got a barn burner for you, so stay tuned. We'll see you next week on The Franklin Show.